Then we had some teams move up, some teams move back to make up the new top 25 going into now week 7. As we start at number 25, Tulane. They had a bye this past week. They stay in the same spot. 24, Iowa State. They lose to Cincinnati 38-30. They move from number 7 to now number 24. UNLV joins the pack, the first Mountain West school for quite a long time. Boise State was in the preseason top 25. They obviously fell out after losing to USF. And number 22, as we keep moving, someone's calling my phone, sorry. Number 22, obviously we just talked about Iowa State losing to Cincinnati 38-30. The Bearcats are now in the top 25 and add another Big 12 program to the fray. Number 21, we have USF. Ooh, they rock those retro bull helmets this past weekend. I was very excited to incorporate that there on the graphic. They beat Charlotte 54-26 for a weeknight date. Vanderbilt, they dropped down from, I believe it was like 17 to 20. They lose to Alabama. They're in Tuscaloosa 30-14. Memphis moves up to number 19. They're in the 20s. Now they're in the teens with a 45-7 win over Tulsa. They are the highest ranked American Conference program. Number 18, we have Arizona State. They moved themselves back in the top 25 last week. Now they're keeping on moving up. They had a nice bye, as we'll talk about their upcoming opponent when we get to those quick picks. Number 17, we have Georgia Tech. They're also slowly moving up in the ranks. They also had a bye. Actually, quite a few of these teams, because the next one, Utah. Number 16, I believe in the AP, they're not ranked. We still are very high on the Utes. I just don't know what those AP poll voters are smoking. I still think they're a serious team, even though they lost to Texas Tech by a decent amount of points. You got to remember, that was all just in the fourth quarter. So it was a still pretty tight game. Number 15, Oklahoma. Yeah, we're also not very high on this program, unfortunately. We might be proven right on why we haven't been putting them near the top 10 whatsoever. They beat Kent State 44-0 this past weekend. Illinois, another team we've had a ton of stock in the offseason. We're very bummed with that Indiana game, but we might see how good Indiana is this upcoming weekend, as we'll talk about them in a few moments. They just beat Purdue. The Fighting Illini is who I mean. 43-27. They're in West Lafayette. Tennessee, number 13. They come off a bye. And also LSU, who unfortunately lost to Ole Miss and dropped down to 12. They stay at 12 after all of the teams losing from this past weekend. Again, coming off a bye. Another team that played a weeknight game, BYU, they beat West Virginia 38-24. They've been in that number 11 spot since I think like week 3. We had them in our preseason. We know a lot about the Provo Cougs, and we're going to keep on probably keeping them there for a while until they prove that they can crack into the top 10. They are one of those undefeated teams that you just don't know yet. I think at one point they were the highest ranked Big 12 team, but Texas Tech, who we'll talk about there at number 9, is now the highest rated Big 12 team. Number 10, Missouri. They crack into the top 10. Undefeated, also coming off a bye. They have a big game there at home this upcoming weekend. Texas Tech. They just beat Houston and handed the Cougars their first L 35-11. And now they're in the top 10. I was going to move them after the Utah win. I just wanted to see more consistency out of them, and they have shown that. And we are very, very familiar for the Red Raiders out of Lubbock, Texas, the fastest scoring offense, and now the number 1 run defense in the country. Yes, they are pretty good in the trenches over there. Number 8, Miami. Another team very good in run defense and also cracking into the top 10 once again. They were at number 9, I think, after the Notre Dame win or in and around there. And then I just was seeing some things from the ACC in general. the whole conference there in the Atlantic Coast, not very good. There's only 2 teams here in the top 25, as it's just them and Georgia Tech. Everyone else is just not, again, as good as they should be, especially Florida State, who will probably lose another game or 2, unfortunately. Which means, Miami probably going to be the only, again, ACC school there in the playoff. They beat FSU 28-22, and at least they didn't blow it there in Tallahassee. Number 7, Georgia. Well, they just beat Kentucky 35-14 to get their first SEC win of the season. Very still high on the Bulldogs there after the loss at home to Alabama. Still a lot of games to play. Hopefully they continue to be consistent, because they will have a nice tough stretch of games here in the near future. Number 6, Alabama. Basically, Florida State losing 2 games now. We kind of do scratch that loss off, really. And on top of that, when you kind of really think about it, Miami and Florida State's like week 1 wins. They had to play against 2 first-time starting quarterbacks. I think you can hold that against them now, unfortunately, as things are getting a hell of a lot better for those losing programs. Since then, Alabama getting better and better. They, again, just beat another ranked team at home, and that was Vanderbilt. 30-14 there, and handing the Commodores their first loss of the season. They move again to number 6. Indiana. They had a bye, and, well, they kind of benefit from it. And also because of the big top 10 shakeup from this past weekend, they moved to number 5, and they're pretty legit, I would say. Number 4, Texas A&M. They beat Mississippi State 31-9. They're at home. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's just really weird to see them and Ole Miss as the top ranked SEC schools. There's still a lot of games to be played for, again, number 3 and number 4 there that we're seeing to possibly, move behind Alabama and Georgia. Because in years past, those are the premier programs in the Southeastern Conference. Ole Miss in at number 3. They have a bye, and they were at number 3 last week. I think the top 3 is basically the same there from the previous weekend. Number 2, Oregon. I guess that win against Penn State isn't so special, but we'll see how this upcoming weekend goes, as they're going to be hosting the Hoosiers there in Eugene. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then Ohio State. They have a nice 42-3 win over Minnesota. Not too bad for the Buckeyes. They continue to win, as I think they have the best overall defense in the country, and that's why the offense there for the team out of Columbus does so well. But yeah, that is the new, again, top 25. Penn State loses to UCLA. They were in at number 8. They basically fumbled that one. Almost came back against the Bruins there in the Rose Bowl. But 42-37, you can't be giving up that many points to a team that's really trying to get everything back together. And they did. They did this past weekend. And then another top 10 team that lost and is now out of the top 10, top 25. That's Texas. They lose 29-21. They're on the road in Gainesville. So yeah, not a single 2-loss team here in the top 25. We'll eventually see them maybe return, like a Penn State, Texas. One weird thing, this season we have now 3 teams that have not been ranked here at your Sports Outpost ever. Notre Dame was that other team we've always had in the top 25. They now join Penn State and Texas as teams to drop out for the first time ever since we've been doing our top 25. And let's say the season ended today. This is what the playoff would actually look like with our top 25. I'm only showing you guys this because of what we did last year in our preseason poll. We had 10 out of the 12 teams in our top 25 there that actually made the playoffs. So we do pretty good for ourselves in terms of like what we're seeing ahead of time and what we are thinking. It's not like any kind of number crunch. It's just kind of what we're really looking in the future rather than right now and trying to hype teams up. We're kind of are not chasing any narratives. We have no incentives to kind of hype up a team in general again. But this again would be the playoffs, if again the season just ended today, let's say again Ohio State is the team out of the Big Ten, they win the Big Ten, they would be the number 1 seed going to the Orange Bowl. The number 2 team would technically be Oregon, they will go to the Rose Bowl. Ole Miss and Texas A&M, for some reason Ole Miss wins the SEC, they would be there in the Sugar Bowl, and then Texas A&M would be in the Cotton Bowl. Then the first round games would be Georgia hosting Missouri, Alabama hosting BYU. That would actually be a very entertaining contest. Miami hosting Texas Tech. That's actually pretty realistic, and that would be also a very entertaining contest. And then the final one, Indiana would be hosting Memphis, as the Tigers there would be the group of 6 representative. And no Notre Dame, which, you know, they have to basically win out to get into this 12-team playoff, essentially. But there's a lot of time still left for the Fighting Irish to get back into the mix. I guess our prediction, like if we saw this and was, okay, this is what the playoff, what we're looking at, this is what we would think be the end result. Yep, Oregon versus Ohio State there in the national championship. We would think Missouri would get that upset. That would be our, I guess, our upset there in the first round, beating Georgia in Athens. Kind of crazy because the Bulldogs don't really lose there very much. Go to the Rose Bowl, play Oregon, and unfortunately lose probably to the Ducks. Ole Miss, well, they would probably meet Alabama, and then would lose most likely to Alabama there in the Sugar Bowl to have that. I just want to see Alabama versus Oregon so bad as well. That's kind of just a little bit of a bias. You know, kind of like my little treat that I gave myself here for this bracket. We got Texas Tech, who I would think would very much crush Miami. There again, number 1 run defense, fastest scoring offense. I don't think they would be, the Hurricanes would be able to keep up with the Red Raiders. They would play Ohio State. I think that would also be a close one between them and the Buckeyes there in the Orange Bowl. But we'll give it to the Buckeyes. And then Indiana would definitely beat Memphis. And then face A&M there in the Cotton Bowl. Then it would be A&M versus Ohio State there in the semifinals, which we'll then give to the Buckeyes because, yeah, they're just a little bit better. Obviously, best overall defense as well. Then Oregon versus Alabama. I think that would be another close game that the Ducks would eventually overcome. And when we really think about it, when's the last time Kalen DeBoer has not beaten Dan Lanning? Yeah, Dan Lanning would want to get one over him. As when he was over with the Washington Huskies. Yeah, that didn't go so well, but there we think it will. And then, yeah, it would be another Big Ten team winning the national championship is what at least we're thinking here in week 7. There's still, again, a ton of football to play. We'll be doing this week by week in our preludes with the top 25 and come up with some crazy brackets throughout the rest of this season. But just wanted to throw this up. Then one also thing to mention. So the highest ranking team out of this round will basically get the preferred location in terms of distance away from them. So technically the Buckeyes would be the closest to the Peach Bowl, and that would be their bowl that they would go play. It's kind of interesting how these semifinals are being shaped up when I was reading through some of the rules. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments or the chat. But if or at least I'm misinterpreting that. And then obviously the Oregon Ducks would be the host team technically in that Fiesta Bowl against Alabama. But also, I still think Oregon would still go to the Fiesta Bowl. Let's say Texas Tech beats Ohio State. We're just looking at hypotheticals, getting ourselves ready for next year, technically, as these games will be all occurring there in 2026.